This is Week 7, Complex Inheritance Patterns, Part 2. This chart is showing terms used in evaluating multifactorial traits. We have gone through coefficients of relatedness, concordance, empiric risk, and heritability. We have not gone through genome-wide association study, GWAS, yet, and we'll be doing that within the next couple of weeks. Body weight. Weight is a multifactorial trait that can be studied using some of the methods that we've discussed. Body weight reflects energy balance, which is the rate at which the food is taken in versus the rate at which the body uses it for fuel. Excess food means ultimately excess weight. Being overweight or obese raises the risk of developing hypertension, diabetes, stroke, and some cancers. Scientific studies of body weight use a measurement called body mass index, BMI, which is weight in proportion to height. BMI is measured in kilograms and in meters. Heritability for the BMI ranges in various studies from 0.4 to 0.7. And what this does is it leaves room for environmental influences on our appetites and sizes. This chart provides a shortcut because the calculations have been done and converted it to the English system of measurement. The squares that are not filled in indicate that the person is underweight. Body weight. Studies on adopted individuals and twins indicate a heritability of 75% for obesity. Lifestyle, including diet and exercise, are environmental components that impact weight. Genes have been found that influence hunger and metabolism. There are dozens of genes that affect how much we eat, how we use the calories, and how much fat is distributed in the body. And the biochemical pathways and hormonal interactions that control weight reveal points for drug intervention to gain or lose weight. Back in 1994, Jeffrey Friedman at Rockefeller University discovered a gene that encodes the protein hormone leptin in mice and in humans. Normally, eating stimulates fat cells, which are called adipocytes, to secrete leptin, which then travels in the bloodstream to the hypothalamus, where they bind to receptors on neurons. Leptin binding signals the neurons to release another type of hormone, and this one binds yet other types of receptors, which ultimately function as brakes to the appetite, inhibitors, while speeding up the digestion of food already eaten. When a person hasn't eaten in several hours, leptin levels fall, which then triggers the release of an appetite accelerator. Leptin is a protein hormone produced by fat cells, and since it acts on the brain to decrease the appetite, Dr. Friedman gave mice extra leptin, and they ate less, and they lost weight. A biotech company paid $20 million for the rights to the hormone, and clinical trials ensued. The idea was to give obese people leptin, assuming that they had a deficiency, to trick them into feeling full. Only about the other 85% didn't actually lack leptin. Instead, most of them had leptin resistance, which is a diminished ability to recognize the hormone due to defective leptin receptors. Giving these people leptin had no effect on their appetites. However, the discovery helped a few severely obese children with true leptin deficiency attain normal weights after years of daily leptin injections. Hormone, which is produced in the stomach, that responds to hunger, signaling the hypothalamus to produce more of the appetite accelerator. One of the ways that weight loss surgery may work is to decrease ghrelin secretion by making the stomach smaller. Since Heritability of obesity has been suggested to be 75%, and the heritability for BMI is lower. The discrepancy suggests that genes play a larger role in those who tend to gain weight easily. The role of genes in obesity is seen when populations that have an inherited tendency to easily gain weight experience a large and sudden plunge in the quality of their diet. I would like to look at Western Samoa. Lifestyles in these island nations have changed since they found a market for tons of bird droppings on their island as commercial fertilizer. Inactivity among the people, and to a diet of high calories and high fat, which replaced an agricultural lifestyle and a diet of fish and vegetables. It only took a generation for 2/3 of the population to become obese, and 1/3 had type 2 diabetes mellitus. Some researchers have speculated that genetics is the factor, but Stephen McGarvey, a co-author of 2 Lancet papers and an epidemiologist at Brown University, decades working in the region, says that what happened in the Samoas isn't so different from what's happening all over the world. Today, people are eating unhealthy foods. And in Samoa, these unhealthy imported foods flooded the supermarkets, and the Samoans developed a taste for cheap fast food. More and more Samoans started working desk jobs. Cars and buses replaced walking. Because the Samoas are so tiny, these economic and cultural changes in this area took hold especially quickly. But it's a warning for other parts of the world. The Pima Indians provide another example of environmental effects on body weight. These people separated into 2 populations during the Middle Ages. One group settled in the Sierra Madre Mountains of Mexico, and the other group in southern Arizona. By the 1970s, the Arizona Indians no longer farmed nor ate a low-calorie, low-fat diet, but instead consumed 40% of their calories from fat. With this extreme change in lifestyle, they developed the highest prevalence of obesity of any population on Earth. Half of the Arizona group had diabetes by age 35, weighing on average 57 pounds or 26 kilograms more than their southern relatives, who still ate a low-fat diet and were very active. The Pima Indians demonstrate that future obesity is not sealed in the genes at conception, but instead is much more likely to occur if the environment provides too many calories and too much fat. If we look at the geneticist James Neal, he expressed this idea and called it the thrifty gene hypothesis, and he did this in 1962. He suggested that long ago the hunter-gatherers who survived famine had genes that enabled them to store fat. Today, with food plentiful, the genetic tendency to retain fat is no longer helpful, but harmful. Unfortunately, for many of us, our genomes hold an energy-conserving legacy that works too well and is much easier to gain weight than to lose it, for a sound evolutionary reason: survival. The thrifty gene hypothesis also applies to people who were born after a full-term pregnancy, but of very low weight. To compensate for starvation conditions in the uterus, metabolism shifts before birth in a way that conserves calories, and the person later faces elevated risk of heart disease, stroke, obesity, osteoporosis, and type 2 diabetes. These are multifactorial conditions that, instead of arising from mutations, reflect epigenetic alterations of gene expression. Please go to this website and you can learn about James Neal's thrifty gene hypothesis. Your assignment for week 7 is to choose a disease that is inherited in the multifactorial mode and to develop and submit a fact sheet about the disease and tell us how you would present the inheritance pattern and the disorder to parents who have just had a child with this disease. Attach your fact sheet to this form and in the description tell the class the name of the disease and discuss with your classmates any problems that you might have in discussing this order with patients and parents. Please go back. If you choose congenital heart defects, don't choose them all, just choose one for an example, as well as with neural tube defects, only choose one of those. But also remember, when you are discussing this, you need to understand thoroughly the pathophysiology that this disorder has. For example, for the congenital heart defects, please go back, review fetal circulation so that you understand where and at what time a specific defect took place and what is actually happening. I think you'll have fun with this, and I think you'll see how important it is to understand the pathophysiology of the disease as well as the genetics.